when you look at what these students are doing, it's pretty incredible. Their days are jam-packed full of fun and excitement, and I think that's just a simple way to help them tell their story.
I'm Dr. Jill Johnson. I've spent my entire career in education. I started in the classroom, then trained teachers, and most recently served as a high school administrator. Now I help highlight the stories, struggles, and successes in educating the next generation of content creators. Welcome to CGTV.
Well, Jill, it is wonderful to be back for another episode of the Content Generation, but this is the most exciting time of the year. I hope it is for you coming just out of a school, but now being in a software company, it's back to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does it still feel that way?
It does. It's a little surreal though that I don't have that. It's a different kind of nervous energy, right? So I'm not having those back to school dreams that all teachers and administrators know about, but definitely the excitement. I still have kids at home, and so definitely that exciting time of year when it's back to school time for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So as we're thinking about back to school, one of the things we've been talking a lot about lately is what's the back to school content look like? Mm-hmm. I think this year in particular, it looks different than maybe in years past, but it's such an exciting time. The storytelling and opportunities are so rich, but I really wanted to get your feedback on a lot of times from a communication strategy, we get very hung up on the tasks and things we have to communicate about back to school. But I know you've done such a great job working with all of the things you need to feel in back to school. So how do you separate those out, and how do you tell a great story there?
Yeah, so I think it's twofold, because there's the information you have to get out, right? You have to have the newsletter, you have to have the handbook, you have to have all the forms that need to be signed. And a lot of times people just check that box, they don't read through that. So I think first it's disseminating some of that information, breaking it down into digestible bites so that people can consume it in an appropriate way and actually know what's going on. But I think secondary, it's then not just telling about the rules and all the have-tos and policies, but what's actually happening in your building. What is that excitement? And so again, it's difficult to do that just from the principal's office or from the secretary's desk. It's really important that we empower others to tell that story. Already, what do those back to school practices look like? I've heard marching bands around here practicing for a couple weeks now. How do we get that message out there and tell that story? And I think it's putting it in the hands of not only our staff, but our students too. They all have their phones, so they are content creators, but giving them then that ability and capability to share that story with others beyond just their Snapchat group.
Right. So one of the things we talk about a lot when we're creating content is what is the point of view of content? Like, how do we take that point of view and shift it, right? So it's not just the students showed up to school, but what did they bring into the school, and what did they bring with them from that summer experience, wherever they've come from, coming into that experience. Point of view is such a critical piece. How do you feel point of view plays a role in that content creation?
Yeah, so I think definitely we all have a different perspective, right? So some people may have spent their summers vacationing on the beach somewhere, while others spent it working in a cornfield. And so I think what they bring back,
true Nebraskan,
very
right there.
Nebraska, right? Not the beach part, the cornfield part, but yeah. So, and even with travel and things limited right now, I think a lot of kids had a lot of really cool experiences, some internships, those kind of things. So when they come back and have those to share, it's also what they're bringing in, and then what are their goals for going beyond. So kids are starting to prepare and try to figure out, what do I want to do next year when I graduate, or what do I want to do when I grow up, kind of scenarios. And so thinking about what is that story that they want to tell, what is that experience they want to have, and really allowing them to do that. So rather than just through the lens of here are the activities and here are the results of those, what's actually the experience that's happening within? What's the culture of the school? How do we capture that, not only in photo and video, but in actually telling the story of what's happening and sharing those feelings? And I think a lot of those things can really be done well through the students' eyes if we allow them to have that perspective.
Well, do you have any practical exercises that you would say this is what works for a back to school, here's what I would ask a student to do, for instance, in a back to school situation.
Yeah.
Do you have any practical?
Well, I think one's just the day in the life, right? So the
Yeah.
day in the life of a student. So, and if you give them just a little bit of guidance on a day in the life of a senior, a day in the life of a farm kid, a day in the life of an exchange student, whoever it might be in your school, and really just allow them, what does that look like morning to evening? And so even though that may sound rather mundane, when you look at what these students are doing, it's pretty incredible, because they're going to things before school. They might be going to weightlifting, they might be going to swing choir practice. Then they're going through, all their study rituals. They're having those engagements with friends in the hallways, the lunch period, those kind of things. And then after school, whether it's practices, maybe a job, and then hanging out with friends, doing things in their community like volunteer service. Like, their days are jam-packed full of fun and excitement, and I think that's just a simple way to help them tell their story.
Well, I know you've got some great resources for how to tell those stories, and really some activation ideas for student takeovers and some of those. So we'll be sure to share those out. But Dr. Jill, as always, it's great to catch up with you, and what an exciting time of year.
Definitely, can't wait.